International news now. Stars like Stevie Wonder, Legend and Christina Aguilera serenaded Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton with a benefit concert out in Los Angeles. The former First Lady appeared to clinch the nomination by picking up the required number of delegates. The She's With Us concert took place on the eve of the California primary, a celebratory tone with the reports that Clinton had reached the 2,383 delegates needed to become the presumptive Democratic nominee. The concert was the last of several on the day and part of an overall 5-day blitz of the state by the former U.S. Secretary of State. The Democratic Party will hold its convention in Philadelphia in July to formally choose its nominee for the November 8 election against presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump. And for more on that story, we're now joined by our correspondent in the U.S., Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us now. Sherwin, Clinton appears to have clinched the nomination with even a concert dedicated to her taking place. How was the reaction to this news in the States?
Well, I think you say it in the way you ask the question, that she appears to have won the Democratic Party presidential nomination. And, Alicia, if I think back to the historic candidacy of then Senator Barack Obama becoming the first black president in 2008, there's just something missing from the historic nature of Hillary Clinton's presumptive nominee status. She becomes the first woman in the history of presidential elections in this country in more than 200 years to lead a major political party in the United States into a general election. And yet the response is a bit muted. Everyone, including myself, I think, we're expecting her to clinch the delegate race only when results come in from the 6 primaries being held today. But, as you mentioned, the Associated Press doing internal polling and getting the jump on everyone, saying that according to their discussions with the unbound superdelegates, and I think this is a critical point, you have these 700 or so superdelegates that can vote for either candidate depending on who wins the most number of pledged delegates through the primary and caucus races. And they have determined through their internal polling that Clinton has reached the threshold to clinch this nomination, and they're now calling her the presumptive nominee.
But Sherwin, look, as things are heating up, speaking of primaries, will this round now consolidate Clinton's nominations over Sanders? I mean, just yesterday it was widely reported that the gap between them had become a very small 2%.
There's no way mathematically, given the proportional allocation of delegates in the Democratic Party race, there is no way mathematically that Bernie Sanders can win the most number of pledged delegates. So this is the argument that the Sanders campaign has been making consistently. I'm sure you've heard Bernie Sanders talk about a contested convention in Philadelphia in July, come the end of July. And he's making the case that if he does well in, for example, the biggest state in the country, which is California tonight, if he wins that state, then he can make the case to superdelegates, those unbound delegates, to switch their allegiance to Clinton. She has over 500 that have pledged allegiance to her. He has about 45. If he can make the case that he's got the momentum, that the polls show that if he were to stand against Donald Trump in a presidential election, that the polls show that he would do much better than Clinton, he would then be able to make this case that they should switch their allegiance from Clinton. What people don't talk about is the long-standing relationships that the Clintons have built up with these party delegates, with these super delegates. Remember, Bernie Sanders is not a Democratic Party. He's the candidate, but he's not a member of the Democratic Party until recently. He was an independent. He's the independent senator from Vermont. So she has these steep relationships with these party stalwarts. And so if he does not win the most number of pledged delegates, it's going to be a very difficult case to make for them to switch their allegiances to him in July.
Very interesting, Sherwin. I mean, it's been reported also that Bernie Sanders says that he's not stepping down. But let's speculate a little here. Just who would be a stronger candidate against Trump come the November polls, Clinton versus Sanders? And please give us what people on the ground are saying about who they are likely to vote for.
Alicia, let's look at what happened in 2008. You had Hillary Clinton, and I think there was a strong argument being made at the time that then Senator Hillary Clinton, who was challenging Senator Barack Obama, had won more of the popular vote in the primary, the Democratic primary, than Senator Barack Obama. What Senator Barack Obama had done was win more of the the pledged delegates and more of the super delegates. At that point, Hillary Clinton had to concede. She expects the same from Bernie Sanders in this case. And she's making that case by saying that she has won 3 million more of the popular vote, 3 million votes more than Bernie Sanders, despite the huge, the rallies there, the huge turnout at Bernie Sanders rallies. When it comes down to how people have been voting, Hillary Clinton leads in the number of popular votes by over 3 million. So that is the strong case to be made. And yes, the polling does indicate that Bernie Sanders would do better than Trump and Hillary Clinton. But what we have not yet seen is Bernie Sanders conceding and getting his supporters to rally behind the party's nominee. That is what happens historically in this race. Hillary Clinton is the best example of that. A lot of people in the Hillary Clinton camp at the time said they would never vote for Barack Obama. He won overwhelmingly in 2008 against then Senator John McCain. So the case needs to be made here, and I think you're going to see the president coming out in support of Hillary Clinton in the days ahead, and you're going to see Democrats, senior party leaders in the Democratic Party telling Bernie Sanders to get out of the way of history. And then you will see, then the polling really starts to matter once you have one nominee on both sides, and then you can make an equal comparison.
Which brings me to my next point, Sherwin. Before I let you go, Clinton has been widely known as a firm supporter of current President Barack Obama in terms of polity. Now, is there a huge difference into what she would bring should she win, or it's more or less a continuation of the Obama administration there?
Well, she's not hiding that fact, Alicia. If you hear her in her debates and in her stump speeches at the various rallies that she's given around the country, she has pivoted to the current president in the White House. She has made it clear that she wants to continue and build on his legacy. I think you are going to see very strong support from President Barack Obama once this delegate race is wrapped up for Hillary Clinton's candidacy. I think in many ways they all see it as a continuation of his legacy. And I think for him personally, the stakes are very high here. If you have a Republican replacing him, things like his signature legislation like Obamacare will be ripped to shreds. Yes. So he has a vested interest in seeing that his legacy is continued here. And I think you will hear from the White House that candidate is going to be Hillary Clinton, certainly from their perspective.
Very interesting news. And there we wrap up Sherwin Bryce-Pease, and he was giving us a rundown of the U.S. elections race as it heats up. He was on the line to us from New York.